Have you ever stopped to think that the men who understood women the most were those who lost absolutely everything? Pay attention to what I'm about to tell you now, because this could completely change how you view your relationships. Imagine being trapped in a forced labor camp in Siberia, the smell of burning wood in the freezing air, the temperature so low that every breath hurts, and in that frozen hell, men who would never see their families again discovered brutal truths about female psychology that modern society hides from you. I guarantee that in the next few minutes, you'll understand why you feel lost in your relationships, why women seem to say one thing and do something completely different, why you give your best, and yet it never seems to be enough. These prisoners were forced to map what I call the feminine emotional tundra, a territory where social rules no longer existed, where only the raw truth about attraction and relational survival remained. Do you think you know women? Wake up, man. You know their Instagram version, the politically correct version, the version that keeps you confused and frustrated. But when life strips away all masks, when social pretense no longer exists, what's left is terrifyingly revealing. Look at what happens to you today. You try to be the nice guy, understanding, always available, and what do you get in return? Indifference, the friend zone, or worse, you become her free therapist while she chases after guys who don't even care about her. Does that make sense to you? The Russian prisoners had no choice. They had to understand the real dynamics or die alone in that brutal cold. And what did they discover? That male value has nothing to do with what you post on social media. It has nothing to do with how many times you send a good morning text. Pay attention, because this is incredibly rare for someone to explain to you like this. Studies show that in situations of extreme scarcity, women reveal their most primitive selection criteria. And no, it's not the guy with six-pack abs. It's something much deeper, and few apply it nowadays. Are you ready to hear these brutal truths? Because once you know, there's no going back. I'm going to show you now the 5 ice lighthouses these men discovered in the feminine emotional tundra. Each of them will make you rethink everything you thought you knew about female psychology. First lighthouse. Scarcity turns you into gold. In the labor camps, a man who managed to get an extra piece of bread was more valued than a millionaire without resources. Do you know why? Because real male value isn't about what you have. It's about your ability to acquire resources when no one else can. Today, you live in an era of false abundance. Everyone seems to have everything, but it's all a facade, man. Women are still programmed to detect who can truly provide in difficult times. It's not about money, it's about competence. It's about being the guy who solves problems when everyone else panics. Remember that time an emergency happened and you were the only one who kept calm? Did you notice how the women around you looked at you differently? That's pure biology. It's their internal radar detecting a real survivor, not a gym poser. Can you feel the difference? Second lighthouse. Calculated vulnerability beats fake strength. The physically strongest prisoners often died first. Do you know who survived? The guys who knew when to show strength and when to admit limitations. This created real connections with local women who could help them. You were taught that men don't cry, that you always have to be tough. Total nonsense. Women detect fake strength in seconds. But when you show strategic vulnerability, something magical happens. It's not about being weak. It's about being human in a calculated way. Like when you admit a specific mistake, but show that you learned from it. Or when you share a fear, but also your plan to overcome it. That's vulnerability that attracts. Not that pointless whining that turns you into emotional deadweight. Does that make sense to you? Third lighthouse. Presence is worth more than promises. In the camps, promises were worthless. What mattered was what you did now, in this moment. The women who interacted with the prisoners didn't care about future plans. They wanted to know, are you present now? How many times have you promised a woman the world? Trips, gifts, an amazing future together. And yet she left. Do you know why? Because you weren't present. You were always on your phone. Always thinking about work. Always mentally somewhere else. Presence is the new luxury, man. In an era where everyone is distracted, the man who can be 100% present becomes an emotional magnet. You don't need to promise anything. Just being truly there makes you worth more than 1,000 empty promises. Pay attention to this. Fourth lighthouse. Adaptability surpasses brute force. The prisoners who survived the longest were emotional chameleons. They changed strategy according to the situation. With guards, calculated submission. With other prisoners, strategic alliances. With local women, improvised charm. Do you still think there's a single formula for dealing with women? Wake up. Every woman is a different universe. What works with one can destroy your chances with another. The guys who understand this navigate relationships like chess masters. It's not about being fake. It's about having emotional range, knowing when to be firm, affectionate when appropriate, distant when strategic. It's a dance, not a military march. Are you dancing or marching? Can you see the difference now? Fifth lighthouse. Extreme authenticity breaks down all defenses. When you have nothing left to lose, something liberating happens. The prisoners, who completely accepted their situation, without masks, without pretense, created deep connections instantly. Today, you live pretending to be someone you're not, trying to impress, hiding your flaws. And women sense that act from a mile away. It's exhausting for you and repellent to them. But when you fully embrace who you are, flaws included, you become magnetic. It's not about being perfect. It's about being real in a way that almost no one has the courage to be today. When you stop trying to impress, you start to impact. When you stop chasing, you start to attract. Does that all make sense now? But wait, there's one more thing these men discovered. Something so powerful that it completely changed how they viewed relationships. They created what I call the relational survival code. These are 3 pillars that separate men who suffer in relationships from those who thrive in them. Sharp observation. You need to see women as they are, not as Disney taught you. Stop idealizing. Stop projecting. Observe behaviors, not words, patterns, not promises. A Russian prisoner would tell me, if he could, that he learned more about women by observing than in years of conversation. Actions reveal everything. Words hide everything. Have you ever noticed how a woman acts differently with you and with the guy she truly desires? It's painful, but liberating to realize this. When you accept reality, you can finally play the right game. Is that starting to make sense? Raw adaptation. Adjust your strategy without losing your essence. The prisoners who tried to maintain the same personality they had before the war died quickly. Those who completely became another person also did. The secret was to adapt while keeping the core intact, like water that changes shape but remains water. You don't need to become a different guy to win over women, but you need to calibrate your approach. With some, humor works. With others, seriousness. Some want adventure, others, stability. But your core, your values, your essence, that never changes. Can you feel how powerful this is? Non-negotiable value. Cultivate something within yourself that doesn't depend on external validation. In the camps, money was worthless. Social status, zero. What was valuable? Real skills, practical knowledge, the ability to entertain, to fix things, to negotiate, to survive. This was the real value that attracted allies and partners. What is your non-negotiable value today? What do you offer that doesn't depend on your job, bank account, or car? If you can't answer, you're building your life on quicksand. Women instantly sense this lack of substance. Pay attention, this is crucial. Develop skills that survive any crisis. Learn to fix things, to cook, to tell stories, to make people laugh, to solve problems. These are eternal currencies in the market of attraction, not your pompous job title that could disappear tomorrow. Now you must be thinking, but this is just an old story. The world has completely changed. Wrong. The fundamental principles of human nature have been the same for thousands of years, especially under pressure. Modernity has only put pretty makeup over the same primitive instincts, but when the pressure mounts, the makeup melts, and the truth appears. Do you think your girlfriend is different? That your situation is special? Every prisoner thought their story was unique too, until they discovered that everyone went through the same patterns, the same dynamics, the same emotional games. Only the setting changed. Let me tell you about Dmitri, a prisoner I studied in historical archives. Dmitri was an engineer before the war, upper middle class, educated. He thought he knew everything about women. In the camp, he lost everything, status, money, even his front teeth. But do you know what happened? He became the most desired man in the camp. Why? Because he understood something you still haven't. Women don't fall in love with your situation. They fall in love with your reaction to the situation. Dmitri, with nothing, radiated a confident calm that made other men want to be like him, and women want to be with him. He didn't complain. He didn't play the victim. He simply existed with a quiet dignity that is sexier than any shredded abs. He navigated the emotional tundra with the elegance of someone who understands the rules of the game. Do you understand the rules? Let me be more direct with you. Most men today are prisoners too. Prisoners of their own illusions about women. Prisoners of the need for validation. Prisoners of the fear of being alone. You're not in a camp in Siberia, but you are in a mental prison that you built yourself, and the bars are made of all the lies you were told about how relationships work. Do you want to know the most brutal truth of all? Women want you to be free from this prison more than you want it yourself, because a free man is irresistible, a man who doesn't need them but chooses to be with them. That is the ultimate power in the dance of relationships. The Russian prisoners had no choice about their physical prison, but they discovered mental freedom in the midst of chaos. And that changed everything. The local women, even though they could choose free men, preferred these mentally liberated prisoners. Why? Because authenticity forced by circumstance is more real than feigned freedom. You live free, but act like a prisoner. You're afraid of losing her, afraid of being alone, afraid of not being enough. This fear is your true prison, and she senses that fear in you like a dog senses fear in humans. Want to break this cycle? Stop trying to impress. Start expressing. Stop chasing. Start attracting. Stop begging for attention. Start commanding presence. This is the difference between mental prisoners and free men. Remember the framework I mentioned? The relational survival code? Observation, adaptation, and non-negotiable value? This isn't pretty theory. It's emotional warfare strategy. A war you're losing because you don't even know you're fighting. Every interaction with a woman is a test, not a conscious test, necessarily, but a biological test. She is constantly evaluating whether you are a survivor or dead weight, whether you add or drain energy, whether you lead or follow. The prisoners didn't have energy to waste on games. Every calorie mattered. Every decision could mean life or death. This brutal economy of energy taught them emotional efficiency, something modern men waste in abundance. How many hours have you lost thinking about her? Analyzing messages, creating scenarios in your head, wasted energy? The prisoners learned to invest energy only where there was a guaranteed return. If a woman showed genuine interest, they invested. If not, next. No drama, no suffering, just the cold math of survival. Do you think that's cruel? Nature is cruel, man, not me. Nature doesn't care about your feelings, about your romantic illusions, about your Disney movies. Nature rewards competence and punishes weakness. And women, whether they want to admit it or not, are agents of nature in this game. But here's the beautiful paradox of it all. When you accept this brutality, when you embrace this raw truth, something magical happens. You stop suffering. You stop getting frustrated. You stop feeling inadequate. Because you finally understand the real rules of the game. It's like playing chess, thinking it's checkers. Of course you're going to lose. But when you understand that it's chess, that the pieces move differently, that the strategy is different, then you start to win. The prisoners were forced to learn chess. You have the luxury of choosing to keep playing checkers and losing, or learn chess and start winning. Which will it be? There's one detail I haven't told you yet, about what happened to these men afterward. Many survived the camps. They returned home. And do you know what they discovered? That they could no longer relate to normal women. Why? Because once you see through the veil, you can no longer pretend it exists. Once you understand the real dynamics, the social theater seems ridiculous. They had seen too much, understood too much, and that isolated them in a way. This is the price of real knowledge. You lose innocence, but gain power. Are you willing to pay that price? Because once you see the ice lighthouses in the emotional tundra, every relationship changes. You can no longer be the naive guy who believes anything, but you also no longer have to suffer from illusions. It's a trade, comfortable illusion for liberating truth. The prisoners had no choice. The truth was forced upon them by the brutal environment. You have a choice. You can close this video now and stay in your bubble, or you can accept these truths and completely transform how you relate. But let me warn you about one thing. Once you cross that line, there's no going back. You'll see patterns everywhere. You'll understand manipulations that previously went unnoticed. You'll perceive emotional games in real time. It's like having emotional X-ray vision. This is power. But power comes with responsibility. You can use this knowledge to manipulate, to hurt, to avenge all the times you were rejected. Many men do this. They become the monster they swore to fight. Or you can use it to create deeper connections, more real ones, more satisfying ones. The prisoners who best navigated the post-war period were those who used their knowledge to heal, not to harm, to connect, not to control, to love more wisely, not to hate more efficiently. Which path will you choose? Because in the end, the brutal truths about female psychology are only half the equation. The other half is what you do with those truths. The prisoners discovered that understanding women was useless if they didn't understand themselves first. Each ice lighthouse in the emotional tundra illuminates not only the path to them, but the path to yourself. Your ability to provide in scarcity reveals your real competence. Your calculated vulnerability reveals your emotional courage. Your presence reveals your inner peace. Your adaptability reveals your social intelligence. Your authenticity reveals your strength of character. See how everything connects. Women are just mirrors, reflecting who you truly are. The prisoners, with no social masks to hide behind, saw their true reflections. Some didn't like what they saw. Others used it to rebuild themselves stronger. And you? Will you like what you see when the masks fall? This is the real test. It's not about conquering women. It's about conquering yourself. Women are just the universe's feedback on your personal progress. The prisoners understood this in the most brutal way possible. You can understand it in the gentler way. Through this knowledge, through this awareness, through this choice to evolve instead of just survive. But time is passing. Every day you postpone this transformation is a day living as a mental prisoner. Every failed relationship due to ignorance of these truths is a lost opportunity for growth. The men in Siberia didn't have YouTube. They didn't have self-help books. They didn't have coaches. They only had raw reality hitting them in the face every day. And yet they learned. They evolved. They survived. You have all the resources, all the knowledge available, every opportunity to learn without suffering what they suffered. And yet you remain trapped in the same illusions, repeating the same mistakes, suffering the same frustrations. Enough. Seriously, enough of this. It's time for you to wake up and realize that the feminine emotional tundra is not a place. It's a state of consciousness. The ice lighthouses are not distant concepts. They are practical tools for you to use today. Now, in your next interaction, pay attention one last time. You don't need to go to Siberia to learn these lessons, but you need to be willing to freeze some illusions that keep you warm but stagnant. You need to let the boy who believes in fairy tales die, so the man who understands reality can be born. The prisoners came back changed. Not all for the better. Some became bitter, cynical, closed off. Others became wise, compassionate, magnetic. The difference? How they processed the brutal truths they discovered. Will you process this as poison or as medicine? Because these truths are both. Poison for your illusions, medicine for your naivety, poison for the inflated ego, medicine for shattered self-esteem. It all depends on the dose and how you take it. I just gave you the formula, the relational survival code, the 5 ice lighthouses, the truths few have the courage to explore. Now it's up to you. Do something with it before you forget, before the inertia of normal life pulls you back into slumber. Like this video now. Subscribe to the channel. Not for me, for you, because this simple act is the first step to escaping your mental prison. It's you telling the universe that you are ready for the truth. ready for change, ready to navigate the emotional tundra with mastery instead of fear. The Russian prisoners didn't choose their lessons. You can choose yours. They were forced to map the icy territory of female psychology. You can use the map they left, but only if you act now. Only if you choose truth over comfort, evolution over stagnation. The emotional tundra is there, waiting. The ice lighthouses are lit, showing the way. The question is, will you continue to be lost in the cold, or will you follow the light? The choice has always been yours. The prisoners taught you this with their suffering. Honor their sacrifice by using this knowledge. Transform your life. Transform your relationships. Transform yourself now.